The dawn light filtered through the pines of Cedar Hollow, a quiet suburban enclave tucked against the rolling hills of Oregon. At the edge of the neighborhood stood a small, ivy-covered house, its garden bursting with native wildflowers. 20-year-old Mia Larson knelt in the dirt, planting saplings for a community garden she'd envisioned with her late father, Daniel Larson, who'd succumbed to heart disease a year prior. Each seedling was a step toward their shared dream, a sustainable urban farm to teach locals about eco-friendly living. But not everyone saw Mia's work as progress. Striding across the cul-de-sac was Helen Warwick, the iron-fisted president of the Cedar Hollow Homeowners Association, her clipboard clutched like a weapon. To Helen, Mia's garden was a violation, a chaotic eyesore threatening property values. What Helen didn't know was that Mia held a truth one that could upend the neighborhood's pristine facade and expose secrets buried deeper than the roots Mia was planting. Mia, a sophomore studying urban planning at Portland State, was no stranger to loss. Her father's medical bills had left her with a $60,000 debt, and the weight of his unfulfilled vision pressed harder with every passing day. The house, a Larson family heirloom since the 1950s, was more than a homite was where Mia and Daniel had spent countless evenings sketching plans for a community hub that blended education and sustainability. Mia's aunt, Clara Bennett, had come from Seattle to help, and she was brewing tea inside when Helen's voice shattered the morning calm. "You're defacing community property without approval." Helen snapped, her tailored blazer and rigid posture screaming control. Mia, dirt smudged on her overalls, stood up, wiping her hands. "This is my family's land," she said, her voice steady but tinged with grief. "I'm building the garden my dad and I planned before he passed." Helen's eyes narrowed, her phone already out, snapping photos like evidence for a trial. "I'm Helen Warwick, HOA president, and I've been tracking violations here. Your garden violates our landscaping codes. You think you can flout rules with a sob story?" The accusation stung, and Clara stepped outside, her protective instincts flaring. "Mrs. Warwick, there's a mistake," she said, keeping her tone diplomatic. "This house has been ours for decades. Daniel left it to Mia, and we're honoring his wishes." Helen's smile was cold, cutting. Another family dodging HOA compliance with an inheritance tale. "Every inch of this neighborhood answers to our aesthetic board plantings, structures, everything. You've been here unregistered, making unapproved changes." Mia's gaze sharpened as she studied Helen's smug expression. "When you claim this neighborhood's under HOA control, are you including the original acreage it was built on?" Her question, calm but pointed, made Helen's confidence flicker. "Don't play lawyer, young lady," Helen retorted. "I've managed this place for 10 years. You have 24 hours to stop this mess, or I'm calling the sheriff, a close ally who enforces our standards." As Helen marched back to her manicured colonial, Mia and Clara exchanged a look. Something in Mia's eyes hinted that Helen had just ignited a fire she couldn't control. At 7:15 a.m. the next day, a call from Deputy Lena Carver woke Clara with a jolt. "We've got a report of unauthorized landscaping and trespassing at 108 Meadow Lane," the deputy said, her voice weary from too many petty disputes. Helen had acted swiftly, her threat now a reality. When Deputy Carver arrived, Mia stepped out, clutching her ID and the garden plans she and Daniel had drafted during his final months. "This is our home," she told the deputy, her hands shaking. "My dad left it to me, along with our dream of a sustainable farm." Carver, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, skimmed the documents with a raised eyebrow. "I need deeds and legal proof of ownership. Mrs. Warwick's got HOA bylaws claiming this land's under their jurisdiction." Mia's resolve wavered, tears welling as the pressure of debt, grief, and accusations overwhelmed her. "I'm not strong like Dad," she whispered to Clara. "Maybe Helen's right, maybe this dream's too big." Before Clara could respond, an older man approached from the neighboring house. "I'm Victor Hayes, retired land use attorney," he said, addressing the deputy with quiet authority. "I saw this young woman being harassed yesterday, and I suspect Mrs. Warwick's claims don't hold up." Victor's presence felt like a lifeline. Kneeling beside Mia, he said, "I lost my son to illness 5 years ago. I know this pain. Your dad would be proud." To Carver, he added, "We need to contact the Larson family attorney." Land like this often has protections that override HOA rules. 3 hours later, attorney Sarah Kim arrived, carrying a leather folder that seemed to pulse with secrets. Mia, your father instructed me to reveal these documents only if your rights to this property were challenged, she said, placing the folder on the kitchen table. Victor sat beside Mia, while Clara and Deputy Carver watched, the air thick with tension. Your father didn't just own this house, Sarah began. In 1955, your great-grandfather bought the entire 30-acre plot that became Cedar Hollow. Your family owns every lot, street, and park here. Mia's breath caught. We've owned it all, she whispered. We could have sold land to cover Dad's bills. Sarah shook her head. Daniel knew, Mia. He discovered it while planning your farm. A land trust restricts development to sustainable uses like your garden. Victor's eyes gleamed with legal curiosity. What's the HOA's standing if the Larsons own the land? Sarah spread out documents. The HOA was established in 1970 under a lease that reverted ownership to the Larsons in 2020. No one checked the terms. They've been collecting fees on Mia's land illegally. Carver let out a low whistle. So Warwick's accusing Mia of trespassing while squatting on her property? Sarah nodded. And those HOA fees? Based on a false claim of control. By dusk, rumors spread, and Helen called an emergency HOA meeting. The community hall buzzed with anxious residents, riled by her claims of a radical garden threatening their investments. At the podium, Helen brandished a stack of papers, her voice venomous. The Larson family thinks they can disrupt our community with eco-nonsense. Victor stood, holding certified records. Every home here sits on Mia Larson's land. The HOA's been operating without authority for years. The room erupted. Residents shouted. Some demanded proof. Others feared for their homes. Helen's face tightened, her control slipping. Her retaliation was ruthless. Helen flooded neighborhood apps with attacks, labeling Mia an eco-radical, exploiting her father's death. Flyers accused Daniel of brainwashing Mia with unrealistic ideals. Victor dug into Helen's past, uncovering her motive. A decade ago, her real estate firm had tanked when environmental zoning laws blocked a lucrative development deal. She saw Mia's garden as a personal insult, a reminder of her ruin.